Hello and welcome once again to Crazy Comics and Stories. It's me, your charming and delightful old Uncle Rap Bastard. And at the other end of the series of tubes and wires that we call the internets is Joe, Crazy Writer. How you doing today, Joe?
I'm actually, part of me feels pretty proud of myself. The other part, I think I'm doomed. The doom part is because I was supposed to vacuum the house and I didn't. Mostly because I spent most of the afternoon running errands all over the place. And then when Chris got home, she didn't scold me for not vacuuming, but I can hear the vacuum running now. So there may be some sharply worded comment later. But I was also, I think the other thing too is I was able to do some cooking, which was always impressing. She comes home and usually it's like, oh, where are we going to eat? And being that we went to Mama's Pizza, St. Paul Ray Street, give a shout out. She has leftovers. I've got leftovers. So that'll probably be today's dinner. But I did find a recipe. Somebody sent me, it's from Morocco for homemade dinner rolls, which is really good for a diabetic. Yeah, carb up. Now, how do you say it? I know the UK they say thyme, right? And we just say thyme.
Yeah.
Okay, because it called for fresh thyme, and I don't know how it was, but mine was outdated, so I used it anyways. And I got to tell you, I really like that old time Moroccan roll. I just can't come. I gotta make them work for it.
So you told me a little while back that you were going to be having lunch with your old partner, Pat, and the ever elusive Butch, or as he is called in our text messages, Birch.
Birch.
Or as I call him,
no Bill LaBar here.
Bunkhouse Butch.
Bunkhouse Butch. That is true.
And how did it go?
It didn't.
Oh, why?
I got called in for mandatory overtime.
I know how that works.
Yeah, because what happened is we have this thing in Minnesota only. I think it's Minnesota Education Association. They give 2 days off for the students. So the teachers go to Valley Fair. They go to workshops for 2 days. And it creates, for most people, a 4-day weekend. And at the airport, traffic bumps up considerably. And we're already short people already, but they brought in officers from the group I used to tour with, the NDO, National Deployment Force. So they basically like, so Joe, you want to work overtime? Well, yes, because I don't have, because of all the surgeries and shit over the last couple of years, I am like right on the edge of having no sick time. Excuse me. So what I do is I work it and I take it as comp time, and then I'm getting vacation time, sick time as I accrue it, and then a comp time just builds up. So if something happens, say I want to get off early Saturday to record a podcast or something, I can do that. And I went in on Tuesday. That was the day we were going to go out to eat. So we decided next week, which would be the 25th for us, we're going to try to get together and do it again. And everybody's like, okay, we'll try it then. So knock on, I don't know what this thing's made out of, fiberboard? We'll see if that works.
It's not going to happen until after Thanksgiving, is it?
No, actually, the lunch thing may happen because Group and I like to get together usually once a month, and we always let Pat pick because he's got gluten intolerance, and as long as they're pizza, we happy.
There's a lot of things he's intolerant about.
Yes, pretty much everything.
Toys! Pat hates toys.
Don't like toys.
Now, I've been looking at our figures, Joe.
I know I'm gaining a little weight, but I'm getting a little.
I mean the podcast figures.
Oh.
We're getting about 4,000 downloads of a new episode after about a month's time.
Wow! Thank you.
And I also have been watching the returning G4, which was a TV network. It started as Tech TV, which had shows about computers, and then they started a couple of shows about video games, and then they kind of switched over to being more video games, and then they switched over to being hot girls in video games, and then they got done away with in 2012. They were the ones who covered the San Diego Comic-Con that I watched at the group home that one time. Where I was at the group home, and there was just me and one client, and I said, do you want to watch the coverage of the San Diego Comic-Con? And they nodded yes, and that was all I needed. So I got paid to watch G4's coverage. Now, they came back in January, but Sunday they sent an email out to all the employees that as of now, they are done. And there were a lot of people who were, oh, why did that happen? Why did that happen? But then on the website Hollywood Reporter, they said that their average primetime viewership was 1,000 people. Now, part of it was that they were mostly online and on Comcast. And even on the local Comcast, they were channel 1,050 something. And there was no advertising if you didn't already know about it. So that doesn't surprise me. But 1,000 viewers. And they had X-Play, they had Attack of the Show, they had a show where basically they broadcast a Dungeons and Dragons game, they broadcast some esports, which I don't know if you even know what an esport is. I did not know what an esport is till my son started watching it, but that's basically where they have people playing video games and they have commentators talking about it. And they did not catch on, even though on Twitch you'll get hundreds of thousands of people watching the same sort of thing. But I saw that, and then I thought about our numbers, and I went and I checked our numbers. Joe, we have 4 times the listenership that they had viewership.
And not near the advertising's outlay.
Well,
not to mention our costs are probably insignificant.
Our costs are lower, and we're not owned by Comcast. G4 was owned by Comcast. Yeah.
Although if Comcast wants to buy us.
Hey, if anybody wants to buy us, I can be bought.
That's true.
Pretty easily, too.
Yep, usually a quick pie or two.
Pie, maybe some kitchen cooked potato chips.
Call from Christina Hendricks.
Yeah.
Hey, she's coming. She's in an upcoming movie.
I know.
It's with the guy from Big Bang Theory. I can't think of the actor's name who played Kutsapali.
I just have been seeing her putting up things on Instagram about she redid her house and then, and I'm on a movie set now. Mm-hmm. But I thought, since we are 4 times as popular as X-Play.
Oh.
4 times as popular as Attack of the Show. And these were actual TV shows that actually made it on actual TV. We should put together a TV network. Yes, that's right. We're going to do Fantasy Booking, a television network. So, now,
I have a quick question.
Sure.
Is this going to be, first of all, when Corey said this, I was like, stay out of my dreams. Because what happens is sometimes when I'm trying to get to sleep, I'll fantasy book things, or I'll write like, okay, I'm going to write a Star Trek episode. I'm writing a wrestling script, whatever. And kind of inspired by Weird Al Yankovic's awesome movie UHF, where he just he stumbles upon a UHF station and they just start filling it with stuff. I've actually thought a lot about this, like what kind of things would I do if I had a UHF network? So the question is this like a standalone UHF? Are we going to be on a cable network 1000? Are we streaming YouTube?
For purposes of this, we're a 24-hour cable network.
Okay, so are we going to just talk about things we would like to do, or are we going to say, okay, here's where we're blocking it, or we just talk and see what we come up with?
talk and see what we come up with. Now, we'd have to schedule 24 hours, so you need to come up with shows that we would rerun as
Okay.
well as new shows, because on G4, they had new shows from about 5 p.m. until 10 p.m. Now, there are a lot of cable companies like Food Network. They'll have new shows. They'll have a block of shows that go from 6 to 10. And then after either 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock, they repeat those. But the morning is filled with reruns.
So the
And
other question is, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
so I thought,
Oh,
maybe a few ideas for reruns and then some ideas for new shows.
and
And they would all have to be anchored by Crazy Comics and Stories, which would be kind of the
absolutely.
2-hour block to start
2
our
hours.
evening.
Yeah, I suppose we do 2 hours, don't we?
We do 2 hours, even though I say, Joe, let's keep it at 90 minutes.
Now, the other thing, we're also in fantasy land. So, yeah, creator rights, who owns the rights isn't an issue because they're all going to go, good idea, yes. And we got silly money because, I mean, the thought of producing an actual live action show of this, cameramen, producers, video, technicians, whatever. Okay, it's all there. Don't worry about it. This is just, you're the viewer, you're tuning in, and this is what you're going to see. Because, and of course, the first thing I came up with, Corey, and maybe we could do round robin. You and who's the guy you do Bad Movie Party with?
That would be Tom.
You do that. You guys either, I don't know if you want to do it weekly or just do it monthly. This is the special Saturday Night Live Bad Movie Party. You two are doing it. Now, I've never been to one.
Ready for my idea that was like that?
Yeah, see, I didn't know if you Mystery Science Theater it or do you just introduce it and then let it play?
We would because Tom used to do Horror Incorporated. He did that for 3 years.
That's on my list as well.
A lot like Spenguli. He would introduce it and have skits and everything. Now, we throw smart remarks at the screen, but we also know that Mystery Science Theater 3000 is very labor intensive. And I feel if I'm doing Crazy Comics and Stories 5 nights a week, that's going to be busy. So Saturday night at the drive-in, it would be a double feature with intermission and Tom and I hosting, either talking about the movie or doing comedy bits or making fun of the movie during the, when we're going in and out of commercial. And it would be a lot like the Sinister Cinema double feature DVDs I have. We could probably even use them since all of those movies are public domain, which is why Sinister Cinema is able to do it. So I think Saturday night at the drive-in.
I think you could do both. And then maybe, like I said, monthly special Bad Movie Party where it's just you two sitting in a living room and you're doing bad movies. No, go ahead.
Had an idea like it. One of the episodes of Horror Incorporated that Tom did was where they took a movie and redubbed it. Another of the ideas that I had for using old movies was redub, where we take old movies and a half hour is redubbed. Because Tom talked about how he did, it was a Sasquatch movie, and it took him months to write and record the redubbing. So I think a half hour a week, very doable. They had something like that on Nickelodeon back in the 80s, but I don't remember what the name of it was, where they took a movie and, they just took a half hour out of it and redubbed the whole thing as a comedy.
See, and I would want Horror Incorporated back too. So you do your double feature, which would go into Horror Incorporated, and then maybe deep into the wee hours, that would be the time, maybe Bad Movie Party or dub or whatever. Look at that. We just blocked almost an entire evening, morning.
There's our Saturday night.
I do want Mystery Science Theater 3000 back. I don't care if they're going to be live, brand new ones, or just rerunning the old ones. Somewhere that's going to fit in there. I don't know if we want to do that Sunday night, whatever. But again, this is my fantasy booking. This is one of the shows I want back. Either we're going to run them, and again, it's assuming that Netflix ain't running them anymore. And even if they are, who cares? It's fantasy. I also like if we did, say we do new movies. Like here, we're showing Avengers Endgame. Yes, Disney granted it to us. But when we show it, we do kind of like a pop-up video thing. I love pop-up video. So it's not that we're doing and we're showing it. It's going to be pop-up things. So we take whatever the hot movie is that's a couple years old, or maybe we'll take, I don't know, I'm trying to think of a movie like the original Blade series. We're going to run a triple feature of Blade pop-up video style. So that way it's, you want the original Blade, you still got to go to Disney streaming. And that would be kind of the tie for me. It would be like, hey folks, this is what we're doing. To go see more or the uncut version or the unpopped up version, go to Disney Plus, because we're all about promotion. We want to promote. If they're going to give us their movies, we'll promote it to them. So that's, and again, I don't know when we would do it. I don't want to get bogged down into like what they. So okay, there. That's. I'm trying to. I just got to cross these ideas off as we come across them. So pop-up videos covered, MK3.
Okay, here's my next one.
Okay.
It would have to be on Monday because it is the Monday Night Wars.
Ooh.
Back when it was WWE 24/7, one of the shows they had was called Monday Night Wars, and they would show the episode of Raw and the episode of Nitro that were on that night. And they would sometimes have someone to talk about what was going on behind the scenes. I think that would be something you'd have to have. It would be, all right, you would start it off with Nitro because Nitro was usually on first. And okay, here's Nitro. Maybe you have somebody who either was involved or somebody like, Dave Shearer or Mike Johnson, somebody who was covering wrestling back then, to say, here's what was going on behind the scenes. Here's what we knew going into it. Kind of give some historical context to it. And then there's your Monday night. You have Raw and Nitro. And just think, when it got toward, I think it was 98. That's 5 hours of TV you're talking about.
That's actually an interesting thing because I had that on the list because Dave and Mike would be somebody I would want to either bring their no-name show but do a video live version for it. And maybe that would just go into Monday Night Wars. So we'll let them have an hour to do whatever the hell they want. And then the payoff is they're going to do a Monday Night Wars. And they can cover anybody they want. They want to, and WWE's giving us full access to all their footage as long as we promote their network, their stuff on Peacock. All about promotion.
The other idea, I have like 6 or 7 ideas for TV series, and these are all because I was thinking more along the lines of early cable TV, which was they were just throwing shit at the wall and seeing what stuck. And I miss that era. It's why I like G4. G4 was like, okay, we've got a network. What kind of crap can we do? That's why you got the Dungeons and Dragons. Okay, where every night for an hour we'll play Dungeons and Dragons, sort of thing. So here's the idea I have: nostalgia pop, obscure sci-fi fantasy shows or comedies or things like that that only went for one season.
Oh, I've got something like that too. Sci-Fi Channel used to do sci-fi classics.
Yep.
And they would run shows like that, like Quark, if you remember that, or Starman, or the Questor tapes. Just weird
Misfits
stuff.
Of science.
I would take that show and do one other one, Do You Remember? And just do other shows. So you got, this is maybe sci-fi, fantasy related. How about just, because there's other shows like Robin Hood I don't know if you remember that one. It was kind of a comedy type show. I remember I could watch it every week until they had one week where they had a special 2-hour show where it was mature audiences only. And of course, I was a kid. I couldn't watch it.
Your parents enforced that.
Yeah. But there's other things. Like, I mean, I would love to see David Soul's Casablanca, which apparently was very bad. I've got like the first episode on a special Casablanca release from Time Warner, but it ran 8 episodes. And there are some shows where like we did 13 episodes, we aired 3 and canceled it. I'm like, guess what? We're going to run all 13 for the first time ever. You may decide at the end of 13 episodes, now you understand why they canceled it at 3. Not our concern. You have been warned.
There was a show on Bravo back before Bravo became all reality shows all the time. No, it was Trio. It was this station called Trio. It was called Brilliant But Canceled. And they did stuff like that, where it's okay, here's this show. It only lasted 6 episodes or 9 episodes or whatever. And they sometimes were able to get some of the actors involved to introduce and talk about the show. And I thought that would be fun, especially putting some shows in context, like Super Train. If you just put Super Train on, people would go, this sucks.
Super Train.
Having like a short documentary ahead of time about how, all right, NBC was in 3rd place. They hired away the guy who had moved CBS to number 1 and ABC to number 1. They hired him, and his first idea was Super Train, which was Love Boat on a train. The problem was they made it too sci-fi, it cost a fortune, and then when it came out, there'd been so much hype for it that people watched it and it's like, oh, this is like a mediocre Love Boat, and quit watching it. That sort of thing.
I'm trying to think of what I just posted it on my Facebook. There was a movie about, was it the Super Bus or something?
Yes.
I would have that. I want a movie of that and Super Train colliding. I got the perfect person. Well, maybe not TV show. I think the idea of TV shows that we get the originals back to talk a little bit about it. But I'd love to get Leonard Maltin in on some of these movies.
Yeah.
Especially, Leonard, you just host a show, talk about your favorite, the worst, whatever. You do it. It's all yours. And because he was just brilliant. What was always fun with Leonard is he's very engaging, and he's one of the few movie critics who gets really behind the history of stuff. I could just listen to him talk about the history. I don't care if the movie sucks. He just could tell you, well, this is why it came out, this is why it sucked, and stuff like that. So, but he would just be a lot of fun to get engaged. I will say there's one thing on Wednesday we're going to have. We're going to have a show, New Comic Book Day. Or maybe Tuesday, because, whatever, to get everybody revved up. But this would be I don't know who the heck we could get host it. We could, I don't know, Kevin Smith, if he wants to do it, if he's not busy doing stuff. Just have somebody check in, talk about these are the books that are coming out. It's kind of like Previews World. I don't know if you've ever watched that. In the previews, they have a live action thing where they talk about it. But it would be just something talking about this is the stuff that's coming out. In addition, here's the comic book fantasy movies. Here's some stuff coming out TV-wise. Kind of just a weekly live show, probably no more than an hour, 7 to 8, prime time, just to get you all excited about comics and stuff.
One of the things on Marvel's podcast that I love, they have the Marvel pull list, which is here are all the comics that are coming out. Here's the digital stuff that's showing up on Marvel Unlimited, and here's the collected editions. And they go through and talk about what they're excited about each one. And I think this would be a good way to do that as well. They wouldn't be able to cover everything, but they could, all right, here's kind of what's coming out. Here's our top 10 or top 15 or top 20 books that we're excited about.
I have a show as well.
Creator Spotlight, which would be a lot like Inside the Actor's Studio, if you've ever seen that. A long-form interview with a comic creator or somebody who works in the business, like an editor, or even, hey, we're going to have Tom Orzeszynski. I'm sorry, I know I'm mispronouncing that name.
That's my
Who
job. You're taking my rift.
who did the lettering for the X-Men and a ton of other Marvel comics, who's still doing lettering, to talk about, hey, what was it like doing lettering before computer and after? What's computer coloring like? How can someone break in as a colorist?
Other than yourself, I've got the perfect person to do that.
And who would that be?
Our old buddy from Pizzas. What did he call his podcast? Adam Vermillion?
Oh, Panels and Pizza.
We're bringing back Panels and Pizza. We're going to give him a budget. We're going to give him a van. He goes across country. I want him interviewing these guys with having pizza, and they sit down, and whoever wants to jump on board, he can do it. If he wants to do little scripted stuff like, hey, I talked to this independent guy. Hey, John Byrne agreed to sit down and grouse with me for an hour over a cheese pizza. So, Adam, we're thinking about you because I think you'd be great. And Corey, I love your interviews too, but Adam just had a way that I actually love. I'd also want here's the other thing I would do. And again, this might be a half-hour show. You remember, who's the guy who did the Diners and Drive-In?
Oh, that's Guy Fieri.
Okay, not him, but I want someone, me maybe, who goes to comics and game stores and does the same thing. Here's the comic shops we're visiting this week, and just promote comic and game stores. Maybe it's just, okay, they go to town. We're in St. Paul, Minnesota. Here's the shops we found. Go in and just talk to the creators, talk to the owners. What makes this shop fun? I think that would be a lot of fun, just to see what they got, promote the shops. And of course, all that would be preempted for San Diego Comic-Con week, or anybody's con, because we would have live show going from the con. I don't know if they, again, we've talked about the limits they give to like Hall H and stuff where they don't necessarily want this stuff out. But hey, it's us. They're going to let us broadcast live. So.
Well, and we could broadcast live, but we don't need to be in the halls.
Not necessarily.
I do think
we'll have spies there, possibly. Like, hey, here's what we just heard.
One thing that really annoyed me this year about San Diego, the last 2 years when it was virtual, they had all the panels online. This year, none of them were, unless the people running the panels set it up and recorded it. And I think San Diego needs to record all their panels, especially because a lot of these comic creators, like in the Mark Evanier room, he's interviewing the older creators. They're not going to be around in a few years. So I think San Diego, New York, the Chicago C2E2 is important enough to broadcast. I would not be able to do the type of broadcast that I did for comic conventions because, oh my God, you're so exhausted. But if it was,
we're going to be running the network. We can't be doing this.
Well,
we'll find somebody.
If it was you and I, and we're more like the host, and okay, this person's going to come up and we're going to talk to him, and then we've got these correspondents out on the floor, and it's time for the Bronze Age panel. We've gotten permission. We're going to broadcast the Bronze Age panel.
Mm-hmm.
Much like how NBC does the Olympics and they've got the hosts in the studio, we would be the hosts in the studio. A lot of my ideas came from early cable, stuff that I miss. And so one is this idea I have that I've been kicking around for a long time. The Sunday night mockbuster. When you were a kid and Sunday night was when they had the really big movies on the networks. Sunday night at the movies. It was a James Bond movie or The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly or Earthquake or that's when they would have the movie that they had spent money on because Sunday night was your biggest TV night. Mockbusters, those knockoffs of big movies. Like when Jaws came out, you had Grizzly, you had Piranha, you had, all of these knockoffs Sunday night would be where we would show those knockoffs, going all the way back. They did them even in the 30s and 40s. And, again, having a Leonard Maltin guy who says, all right, after Jaws came out, and Jaws made more money during the summer than any movie ever, movies changed in that it used to be that summer was where you put your movies that weren't, that were just garbage. And you would hope, hey, kids aren't in school. There's not, the drive-ins are open. We'll just dump it there. Oh, nope. Now summer is when we release all the big movies. But there are still knockoff movies. Transmorphers. Real movie.
Well, there's things such as, actually, now you're kind of, this kind of morphs into an idea I kind of had where I want to talk a little bit about Saturday morning. There was always in my brain, I want to do an animated movie block, maybe do it edging from Saturday morning into Saturday afternoon.
Oh,
you said Transformers the movie. Movies that have never, like there was Rock and Rule, which as far as I know never got released, or if it did get released, it was limited. The animated Lord of the Rings, Anastasia, whatever. There's tons of, and G.I. Joe movie, because the Transformer movie I recall seeing. The G.I. Joe movie, I don't recall if it ever came out other than videotape, things like that.
Nope, it was in theaters, but it was one of those where it's only on the weekend in the afternoon.
That explains it, because Transformers, I remember going to see, we were at college radio at the time, and we told everybody, hey, anybody wants to come meet us there? Nobody met us there, but people laughed that we were going to it. So again, moving into Saturday morning, what I would love to do is, like we were talking about, bring back reruns of old Saturday morning cartoons that we loved. And they would be limited because a lot of them were, like Return of the Planet of the Apes, Croft Super Shows.
Oh, we talked about this one of the times when we were driving around a recording.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, Gilligan's Planet isn't being rerun anywhere.
And maybe we could get somebody to come. And again, we're big about, we want someone to come in and talk about, hey, what was the impetus behind this? Are any of the voice actors around? Star Trek animated? But it would be basically just all that old stuff. And of course, Super Friends, Scooby-Doo, even if I don't like it, Pink Panther. And we got oodles of stuff we could show. The Beatles, a lot of stuff that ran like a single season or nothing beyond that. I love the Croft Super shows, things like that.
I do like that on MeTV, they do have Saturday morning cartoons.
Yes.
And they've gotten their hands on the Warner Brothers stuff, Popeye, and some of the public domain stuff that's still good, the Fleischer Studio stuff. And they've got a regular host and a puppet that do it. And I think a kids show like that, except, a kids show aimed at adults, where it's not syrupy sweet, but it's one of those that the kids would watch it, but the adults would like it too.
Yeah. Actually, in the 50s, there was a guy, Axel, and I can't think of the name of my mom used to love it. And when I found old black and white reruns of him, I understand why, because they would pun things, what's set in the road? Ahead, and I think it was Axel was on the TV, and whatever he talked to was never seen. So there may not have been an actual puppet, but he was always talking to a dog. They'd be like, "Horror," which was the cameraman reacting to the dog. Would you, now we always talked about, the other thing, I would love to do an animation block, an anime block, because I don't think anybody does anime anymore.
Oh, no. Cartoon Network has Toonami.
Okay, so it's still around.
Yeah.
So I guess maybe not.
They do that Saturday overnights, and the ratings for that are monster huge.
I would want to do, maybe this would be something I would do original, like the Star Blazer 2099, the new one, that as far as I know, never been released on television, because we're going to go over to Japan and get the rights to that baby.
I think classic anime would be a good block.
Yeah, I'd love to see the original one, because they did the first two, and they never did the Bowler Wars, as far as I know, on TV. And when they did do the voice, it was different voices. So it's kind of, you're used to 2 seasons of this voice and then another. But again, it was never on television. I only recall seeing it on VHS and DVD.
Yeah. Stuff like Gundam, stuff like Dirty Pair. Oh, yeah. Stuff that's not going to be on Adult Swim because it's 40 or 50 years old.
Yeah.
My last kind of new show is not based on a cable TV show, but based on something they had on Peoria Album Rock Radio. They would have the Poor Man's Concert. And what that was, it's, Peoria, we didn't get the big rock bands. So they would get the set list for like Led Zeppelin or the Rolling Stones, and they would play all the songs that were on that set list. Now, here's the thing. There are tons of concert movies from the 70s and 80s, 90s, et cetera, et cetera. And most of what they show on Access TV or MTV are modern bands. But what about, hey, Paul McCartney had a concert film. Led Zeppelin had a concert film. The Who had a concert film. There were documentaries about other bands. There were all the concert videos that came out in the 80s, 90s, 2000s. Sort of the Friday night concert or Friday night videos where it's, okay, we're going to show all the videos from Peter Gabriel. We're going to show all the videos from...
Yeah, music video things.
Yeah. But it would be the Poor Man's Concert where it's, okay, it's 11 o'clock on a Friday night. Get yourself all high or drunk. And here's a Pink Floyd concert from 1978.
Or maybe we'll play The Wall for you. Or maybe what we'll do is, guess what? Tonight we're going to do all videos that are animated.
Yeah.
Or tell you what, these are all animated. These are all videos that are tied into superhero movies. And these are playlists on my YouTube that I put together. So it's very easy to do.
Now, did you have any other new shows that you wanted?
There is one I would bring back. Corey, do you remember John Lovett's The Critic?
Yes.
I would bring that back. And John, you're going after new movies. I want you to review new movies and animated. So we're just again, maybe might have to dumb it down to like a South Park style where or just let him do what he was doing on The Critic. I miss that light, funny viewpoint of movies. And of course, for entertainment, I would just syndicate my favorite local show, The Jason Show, put it on because he tends to cover everything else entertainment. And he's a geek, so he gets it. He actually does a podcast with his husband, Two Fairy Godmothers, I'm sorry, where they talk about going to Disney, what they like, what they don't like, because he's a Disney-holic. He always goes to Disney on his vacation breaks. So again, things like that offer, hey, come on in. Even my good buddy Jeff, who does Cinema Judge, is like, come on, let's bring it to TV and let's do it. So that would be some of the newer stuff. I'd love to see a Weird Al TV. I don't know if he wants to, but I'd love to see him come back, or maybe just do it a special event. Come on back. We're going to let you, Al. You're going to program this block of television. Matter of fact, that is a bigger one where I've seen this done on streaming, Sirius. Hey, Weird Al, what are some of your favorite TV shows? Stream them for us. Or let's get Rob Liefeld. Sit down. What are some of your favorite shows? Or Brandon Fraser, what do you like? We're going to give you Friday night. You got 3 hours. You decide what you want to play, and we'll play it for you.
They do that on Turner Classic Movies every so
Oh
often.
yeah, absolutely. That
Where
would
they
be
have
it.
the
But
guest programmer.
and I want it for TV shows.
Yeah.
So that could be fun. I'd like to see comedy come back, do some live comedy. And let's see, I think I have Tosh 2.0. Got to have somebody covering the interwebs.
Yeah,
So,
that was a weird cancellation because they'd renewed him for 2 years.
mm-hmm.
And then they canceled the show saying, yeah, we're going to be switching all our, we're getting rid of all our sitcoms and stuff like that and moving over to animation. And then they never did the animation.
Yeah. Tosh, we're thinking of you. Come on back. So
for reruns.
I want Hogan's Heroes.
Actually, the first idea I have for reruns is something that Heroes and Icons does every night. Hashtag All Star Trek. They show original, Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, and Enterprise. There's your afternoon.
Yeah, they used to do that on some of those higher definition band over air channels. TV was like that. Like, would they call their Saturday Night Live? It was all superheroes.
Oh, they still do that, but Heroes and Icons, which is one of those, they're the ones who do the All Star Trek. I would steal that.
Oh yeah, I love that.
A rerun that a show that has not been rerun since the 90s. And believe it or not, they did show this in reruns in the 90s on the channel Trio. I want the original Late Night with David Letterman.
Oh, that would be fun.
I got so hooked on watching the reruns of that till Trio went off the air. That's where I found out about Brilliant but Canceled and a few other things. It was every night at 9 o'clock they'd have Letterman. And the video was, they didn't record it really well because it's, well, we'll use these for best of, but we're not thinking of but they saved every episode of Late Night with David Letterman. I would love to get that. The Japanese Iron Chef. I would love to get that. And then the last big rerun thing I'd like to do is Doctor Who.
Oh, yeah. Whatever's, even the animated stuff where they're filling in the gaps by animating.
But there's even a channel on Pluto TV that's all Doctor Who. And it mostly concentrates on the first version, not the new we spent a little more money version that started in 2009. No, this is the classic Doctor Who. I think those would be reruns that would fit kind of the crazy comics and stories vibe. We want the whole network to kind of have the vibe of the podcast.
And then, of course, Corey would be proud to present to America the first ever baby metal concert.
Yeah, they've put out a bunch of concerts on DVD.
Yeah, but you're bringing them to America for this.
If you ever want to see something really fun, look up when they appeared on the Late Show with Stephen Colbert. That was a really fun appearance, and you could tell that before they started, he was like, I don't know what I'm getting myself into, and afterward, he was hooked. It was a really fun, but there you go. That could be one of the Poor Man's concerts.
Yep.
So there you go, Joe. I think that is more than enough.
I do want 2 to 4 a.m. That's going to be my spot. And you know what I'm going to air?
You staring at the TV?
Maybe.
You and Butch just sitting there?
Possibly. All I'm going to say is until we have our channel, you'll never know.
Because that's Joe's time.
Yep.
You know who would be buying ads on our cable channel, Joe?
Oh, that's the other thing. To pay for this, I would go to our sponsors and say, tell you what, we're going to do a rerun of Hogan's Heroes without ads. But at the beginning and end, because you're paying for this time, you're the reason we can watch this uncut, unsponsored. And you're going to have our little logo in one hand and your logo in the other. So that's how we're going to pay for the network. We're not going to run you with ads. Although, hey, if you want to run the trailer, there you go. I forgot that. That was the trailer show where we show all the cool trailers in its entirety. Who needs YouTube?
Well, and our first sponsor on the network would be these guys. Our newest sponsor is NordVPN. Let's be honest, if you're out on the internet, you need a VPN to protect you. There's all sorts of things going on the internet where people can track you. You could accidentally download a keylogger, all sorts of things. NordVPN gives the best security possible. It has a password manager which generates complex passwords, syncs across all your devices, stores your notes and credit card information. It also gives you 10 gigabytes of private cloud storage, secure files. It backs up your data automatically. But the main thing it gives you is peace of mind. It gives you peace of mind when you're out on the internet, when you're streaming, when you're playing games, when you're listening to podcasts like this one. It gives you safety anywhere at any time. It protects your online activity. You get full access to all content. And if you use the link go.nordvpn.net sh3ku, it'll take you to where you can get a great deal for a 1-month plan, a 2-year plan, a 1-year plan. They are our newest sponsor. We're happy to have them. And if you would like to sponsor something here at any of the podcasts on the Solitaire Rose Network, you can. Just email me, solitairerosenetwork@gmail.com. Thanks. And just think, if we did this, I wouldn't be able to do all of these podcasts. The Solitaire Rose Podcast Network is filled with all kinds of audio goodness. First, there's Crazy Comics and Stories. It's been going since 2010. It drops every Monday, and it has me, your charming and delightful old Uncle Rat Bastard, and Joe Crazy Writer talking comics, shenanigans, and whatever we're freaking and geeking about. Every Monday morning. It's been going since 2010, and it's available at crazycomics.solitairerose.com. Also on that same feed is the Solitaire Rose Podcast, which is me, again, your charming and delightful old Uncle Rat Bastard, doing interviews, talking about comics history, pretty much talking about whatever I want to talk about. We've also got Solo Joe, where Joe Crazy Writer does a solo podcast. And he hasn't done one in a while, so kick him in the shins to get him started. We also, on that same feed, have Solitaire Rose Series and Review, where we do DVD commentary of older comic book series. That's all at crazycomics.solitairerose.com. I also do a podcast with Wolfie B. Bad at badadvice.solitairerose.com, where we take listener questions and give them bad advice. There's also Novelcast, where I take the novels I've written and turn them into free audiobooks. That's at novels.solitairerose.com. There's also Fantastic Forecast, where myself and Adam Vermillion are going through the entire run of the Fantastic Four, 4 issues at a time. That's fantasticforecast.solitairerose.com. There are always more podcasts at the Solitaire Rose Podcast Network. Be there. Aloha. Here's another thing on the podcast that we would not be able to do as a TV show, but we do it here because it's important to us. And that is, Joe, what conventions are coming up?
All right, excuse me while I check this out. Just want to make sure the date. The other thing I want to mention, somebody sent me a note saying, how come you didn't cover this? It's like, well, there were 2 reasons. First of all, we're recording this a little bit behind the scenes here. We're recording this on the 20th. Your event's happening the 22nd. They're not going to hear it till the 27th. There is a week lag here. So if you really want me to promote your signing, your show, and you know we love doing it, remember there's always at least 2-week turnaround. So if you got something coming up on the 29th, well, like these guys, October 30th, Halloween Bash 6. It's the Minnesota Toy Posse's Curse of the Minnesota Toy Posse event at the Bloomington Event Center, 1114 American Boulevard West in Bloomington. Free admission, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., 75 tables of toys and collectibles, costume contest, and it's indoors because they're going to be indoors now for the rest of the winter. So they told us about this months ago. So again, if you want to, and again, we're open to do anything. If you're a creator going to a store, if you're a store heavy creator, you got a sale going on. More importantly, I want to go, So with this case in Halloween, I can get there 9 a.m. and have a couple hours to go before I have to go to work. We keep mentioning Twin City Con 2022, and Corey just found out, well, first of all, it is going to be November 11th through the 13th at the Minneapolis Convention Center, which is downtown Minneapolis. And if you want to know who's going to be there, and I happen to have their website up, twincitiescon.com. And I'm just looking down the list of people. A lot of actors, Elijah Wood from Lord of the Rings, Sean Austin from Lord of the Rings, Mick Foley, pro wrestler, best-selling author, is going to be there. I'd be excited for that. I'm not going to name off everybody, but you can. Phil Lamar does a lot of the voices. He's there Saturday, Sunday. I would love to visit him. Some of Corey's friends from AEW are going to be there. Britt Baker, Anna Jay, Jungle Boy Jack Perry. Let's see as I keep flipping down here. Timothy Zahn, guy who did a lot of Star Wars, Thrawn, Heir to the Empire, Scoundrels. That would be someone I would want to visit. Larry Hama, G.I. Joe, Wolverine, and of course, I love him because I watched him for years and didn't realize, oh my God, he's in an episode of MASH, which I've ranted about before. Let's see, I'm just flipping down. Dave Wheeler from Mind's Eye Comic, local friends is going to be there. Xander Cannon as well. And Corey, you just found out somebody else we know is going to be there.
Grandpa Dangerous Dan Moore will be there. And he's going to be on next week to talk about it.
Oh, so again, you want information, twincitiescon.com. You can go there. They apparently still have some exhibitor spaces to go. They got their question and answer page, volunteer information, and they're always updating their guest list. So that should be fun. Again, I work weekends. I don't know if I can get off to do it, but I'll check it out. Meanwhile, our buddy at Remix, I don't know what you call them, vintage nostalgia store up in Forest Lake, is putting on Vendor Palooza again at the Uncommon Loon Brewing Company in Chisago, Minnesota on Saturday, November 12th. Show's noon to 5 p.m. and it's free. No cover charge, all ages. Vinyl record dealers, video game dealers, comic book dealers, artists, bakers, more. And of course, Uncommon Loon Brewing Company. It's an independently owned craft brewing offering fresh quality beers in a comfortable tap room. So that actually sounds kind of fun. Following week, Saturday, November 19th, the Minnesota Comic Exchange presents Comic Show. Oh boy, I love it. Just get right to it. That is going to be at Valley Creek Mall. Free admission as well. 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. I'll be able to get there early and check some stuff out. And then way in the future, MiniCon 56, April 9th, 7th and 9th, 2023, Minneapolis, Minnesota. Author guest of honor, Martha Wells will be there. Artist guest of honor, Sarah Felix. Fan guest of honor, Greg Ketter. This is put on by the Minnesota Science Fiction Society. Go to mnstf.org/MiniCon56. And that's all I got. If you want me to blab on about your show or appearance or sale or whatever, you know what to do. Send me some.
And now it's time for retro reviews. Joe.
All right. Now, I got to be careful because when I go retro, I go nuts. Because I could just sit there and talk about these for hours. I basically just randomly pulled one out, and I got Brave and Bold number 192. 60 center from November 1982. On the cover, starring Batman and Superboy. Let's see. Page 1 is an ad for Lego Expert Builders Series, something I never got into. It's where you could actually make engines or dune buggies or things like that. Oh, I wanted it. The gist of the story. This is from Mike W. Barr, Jim Aparo artist. Batman is on the hunt because some idiots figured they would nab Superman's charity fund while he's out saving Portland from a meteor storm, not realizing that Batman would be on the case. Batman's thinking, I promised Superman he could help bring these losers in. So he beeps that special ultrasonic signal. Superman takes off from the Daily Planet, whooshes away, and right as he gets going, Batman's, look out. That glow, something's wrong. Look out, your good Lord. Superman disappear, and Corey, guess who appears?
I don't know.
Superboy. Elton, we got trouble. It's worse. It's Superman, but he doesn't realize it's Superboy. Well, they take a couple shots at him. Continued third page following. Okay, let's see. Next is now Bubble Yum is Super Yum. An ad for Bubble Yum. Was that the gum that lasts a good long time?
I believe
every time
yeah.
you wanted bubble gum, the flavor fiend would want himself some Bubble Yum. Let's see. Second page, you could sell grit, or you could go buy a Tyco Magnum 440 slot racer for use on all Tyco and AFS slot. Tyco, be first with the winners. Superboy goes through the window, smashes through the wall. Batman comes through the window. He introduces himself, tells Superboy that you know me as Bruce Wayne. And of course, this is where the time thing comes into place, because it's 1982 and Batman tells him, I know you're Bruce Wayne. Superboy knows you look like a Bruce Wayne younger. He says, let me take a look at your civilian clothing. And Superboy's like, well, if you know where I'm hiding it, you must be telling the truth. But what'll that prove? Well, that you are a young Clark Kent. Where is Superman? Well, he's back in 1961. And there's a time barrier that keeps him trapped and keeps Superboy from going. So this is also where several times throughout the issue, Batman kind of scolds Superboy in a fatherly way. There are ways to disable crooks without demolishing the neighborhood. Try your super speed or heat vision next time, okay? Because there's a big hole in the wall. And Superboy's like, you sound just like Pa Kent. Sometimes I think I'll never get used to my powers. You will, son. Trust me. But right now, we've got work to do. And after a quick ad for Lifesavers candy, where you could be the flavor shooter with 3 different directions, they continue to hunt down. They find the criminals. Batman scolds Superboy for melting the gun and making it blow up versus just melting the bullets in midair. And what comes to pass worries Batman as Superboy's out canvassing Metropolis. He takes a quick peek in Smallville and discovers that his home is all boarded up and that his parents have passed away. And Superboy's mad. He doesn't want to do anything. And Batman kind of goes, look at yourself, feeling sorry for yourself. Is this how your parents trained you? Would they want you to deny your abilities and refuse them to help mankind because your own life isn't perfect? And anyways, there's a quick reference. They find out who the villain is. IRA Quimby, IQ, who apparently from DC Comics Present has number 4 recovered from being turned into a creature of stone. And as Superboy attacks, he gets covered with kryptonite and has to escape. I think, what the heck was IQ doing? He thought that he was going to send Superman back to the prehistoric past, where the time shield would prevent him from returning. And what he didn't realize is that he didn't send him all the way back. He ended up sending him back to when Superboy was, and then Superboy popped forward, and that was pretty much the undoing. And since they defeated IQ, they thought, okay, well, let's see if you can leave. Superboy disappears. Superman shows up. He's very confused. That'll take some time to explain, old friend. Coffee's on me. We're only halfway through the issue here. After a quick ad for a Dungeons & Dragon adventure where you could send in for a free catalog to TSR Hobbies.
By the way, Joe, who drew that TSR ad?
You know, it doesn't say.
But I know who drew it.
Who done did it?
Bill Willingham.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Cool. There you got 2 artists. The next one, well, first of all, there's an ad for Sergeant Rock is on the move in 82. New from Remco. Sergeant Rock 3 3/4 action figure. Combat ready. Plus free dog tag with your own serial number. Available at your toy store. And then the backup feature in Brave and Bold was Nemesis. Operation Overkill. This was Kray Burkett writing it, Dan Spiegel being the artist, with Adam Kubert lettering. And I'm not going to get into this because this is part of a multi-story that kind of ran throughout the issues, but Nemesis basically had the ability to mimic almost anybody. And that's what he does in order to find out the crime and what's going on. There's a couple pages. Well, what happens is when you get to it, he finally figures out what he's been going after, and it leads into next issue, Batman and Nemesis together. We strongly recommend that you be here for those who live by the sword. So it all ties in. We got another ad, the ads where you get the little tiny thing, a comic book for sales from Howard G. Reffer. Here's 3 mil comic bags, whatever, that were so uncommon there. The big ad for DC on the Move includes Camelot 3000, Arion Lord of Atlantis, Blackhawk, Supergirl. The new DC, we're on the move in 82. Yeah. There's a letter page, which is kind of cool. DC Comics, they only covered Superman, which had Action Comics. New Adventures of Superboy, they covered Detective, All-Star Squadron, number 15, Weird War Tales. The finale on this one, you get a triple free offer when let's see, a free burning key card racing rig. This is where I believe when you bought the car, you stick a little key in its butt, pinch it, and it goes speeding off. So when you bought the racing helmet collector case, number 1, you get a free burning key card with it. And then if you buy 3 burning key cards, you get 1 free by mail, proof of purchase, cash register relief coupon. And you get a third chance to get another free by mail one. So this was Kidco 1982 really pushing this Tough Wheels Kidco key cards. I remember these things. They weren't that cool. Not compared to Matchbox, not compared to Hot Wheels. And finally on the back was an ad for a video game from Parker Brothers coming soon for Atari Video Computer System and the Sears Video Arcade. Frogger. We hopped Frogger out of the arcade. Now can you hop him home? So that's pretty much it. Short and sweet. I liked the Batman Superboy story. It's compressed. It's quick. Fit in continuity everywhere. The Nemesis, I do recall enjoying Nemesis because I was buying Brave and Bold for quite some time. I don't recall if at this point in time we knew that Brave and Bold was soon to be canceled to be replaced by, I believe it was Batman and the Outsiders.
Yes.
So, and what I loved about Brave and Bold, we've talked about it in the past, just going back and looking at all the different crossovers. I love the ones where he crosses over with Supergirl. I was going to pick 150 where it was a guest star, but I know I've talked about that in the past where the guest star was, I'm not going to tell you. You got to go look up that episode of the podcast or go out and buy your own 150. And of course, going back into the Bronze Age, Silver Age, Phantom Stranger, Joker, Teen Titans, it was just wonderful. I've got most of this in the Essentials collection, and I don't know if has DC done they must have done a omnibus type thing.
Oh yeah, they did 3 omnibuses for the Bronze Age Brave and the Bold. So the entire run of Batman team-ups is in omnibus format.
And I think the earliest one I had, I remember there was a Green Arrow beardless with Martian Manhunter. And
that's when they started doing team-ups.
Yeah, the team-ups. And I do remember having that, and there were a couple other ones. I remember Batman going into the House of Mystery, teaming up with Sergeant Rock, going back in time. It's just a fun, nostalgic book. We've talked about how these didn't really tie into continuity in the past, but if you see one languishing in the dollar bin, you can pick it up. It's a good read. Corey, what do you got for us today?
This is a book that at first I was like, oh, that's not that old, and then I realized that it is 17 years old, which happens to me more often than I want to admit, and that is Punisher Max, Volume 1, trade paperback, written by Jason Aaron and drawn by Steve Dillon. It is Kingpin. And I recently read the entire Jason Aaron Punisher Max because after reading this, I enjoyed it so much. It was like, oh, I skipped over this because it was, this isn't Garth Ennis. I don't care. Well, now Jason Aaron is Jason Aaron. This is a Punisher series in which time has flowed at its regular rate. So the Punisher has been active for 30 years, and the mob is tired of him killing them off, and they concoct a plan to create a crime figure for Punisher to go after that will be a trap. And this crime figure is called the Kingpin. And the 5 families decide to pick a man, Mr. Wilson. I'm sorry, Mr. Wilson Fisk. He's a bodyguard of one of the members of the 5 families, and they say they're going to turn him into the Kingpin so that he seems like the guy who's in charge of crime, so that Punisher will go after him, and it will be a trap that they will be able to finally rid themselves of the Punisher. However, Mr. Fisk has other plans as well. One of the things that happened with the Garth Ennis Punisher book, as it moved on, Steve Dillon went on and did other things, and he brought in European artists who had a very different look and a very different flavor, and the stories became more and more political. Not that there is anything in the world wrong with that. Garth Ennis's Punisher run was fantastic, but it did get away from the core of the Punisher, which is his family was killed by mobsters, so he kills mobsters. Even when Garth Ennis took over, he said, yeah, the book has gotten too far away from what happens. It's the Punisher, his family was killed by criminals, so he kills a bunch of criminals, preferably ones who have vowels at the end of their names. This gets back to that. It collects the first 5 issues, which has the Punisher trying to figure out who this Kingpin guy is, but also Wilson Fisk maneuvering himself into the position that they're making him pretend to be in. Steve Dillon's art is so fantastic. Each character, whether it's just somebody on the street or the 5 criminals, has a distinct look, a distinct body language, a distinct way of dressing that gives you who that person is just by how they look, how they act, how they dress, how they comport themselves, where they sit in relation to other characters. I miss Steve Dillon so much because his art was so good. And when you look at it, it looks very simplistic. He doesn't use a lot of cross-hatching. He doesn't use a lot of shading, but he's able to draw facial expressions much the same way that Kevin Maguire draws facial expressions, where you don't need the writer to tell you what's going on inside this person's head. You can see it by their face and their body language. Paul Smith was another guy like that, where Chris Claremont wasn't as wordy with Paul Smith because Paul Smith communicated a lot of the emotion through the art. This is a 5-issue story arc, and it flows. Jason Aaron, I think this was his first Marvel work. He'd been over at DC doing stuff in Vertigo, and he came in to do this Punisher arc, and it just flows beautifully. And it basically, the idea of it is that, yep, Punisher was started in 1972, and he's aged. And this is what the world is like after 30 years of him fighting crime. Excellent book. It is currently out of print. You're not going to be able to get it on Marvel Unlimited, but you can still buy it secondhand. It's still available on Amazon with comic shops and such selling it. It's not going up in price dramatically, so you can get it for cover price or below. This one is highly recommended. I will probably report on the rest of the series because as I read the series, I had not read it before. I hadn't heard much about it. The entire run by Jason Aaron blew me away. It was a fantastic run, as good as the Garth Ennis run. And now we get to my favorite part of the show.
where we all
No,
watch
no,
television. Oh,
no, not where I take a bunch of antihistamines and sleep for the rest of the week. Even then, I'd wake up and I'd be tired. No, it's Freaking and Geeking Joe. What are you freaking on?
all right. I think I covered the health thing last week.
Yes.
So we're good there. Everything's fine. I'm just going to live with a nugget in my nugget. We do have a bit of a mystery on our hands, though.
Ooh. Let's
And
call in the Scooby Gang.
Yeah, hang on a second while I find it here. Apparently, as I was reading through my New Mutants thing, during Assistant Editors Month, they have a contest where they call, yes, you can win Elliot's Marvel Slipper Universe Slipper Socks. Mail entries to Brown 6 Marvel Comics, yada, yada, New York, New York. And you had to do 30 words. Who won Elliot's Marvel Universe Slipper Socks? As far as I know, they've never said. Inquiring minds want to know. The only other thing I'm freaking on is, and Corey and I were talking about this off podcast, is that, first of all, I just got my box day, which is very convenient because the orders had to be in as we're recording this, actually probably the day before. So if I had waited to get my previews, I would have been late. And I have no idea when my next box day is going to show because they were like, good grief. Okay, I'm going to the calendar on this one. Yeah, they were 2 weeks late on this one. And you can't be 2 weeks late on an order because, especially with previews, because there's only 4 weeks in a frickin' month. So I don't know what's going to happen with next month. So I'm a little freaked about that. But that's the future. Don't really care. Corey, what you freaking on?
We talked a little about it early on in the show. G4 has been ended. I liked G4 because, first off, I like X-Play. If you think that comic book fandom is toxic or Star Wars fandom is toxic, video game fandom is a nightmare of alt-right incel nightmare people who, if you like anything outside of what you're going to get pounced on and attacked relentlessly. And G4 was all about video games are fun. Let's have fun. They had a show with Xavier Woods from WWE where two people would have beef. So they would settle it with a WWE superstar helping each one play stupid games such as, playing a video game or, a trivia contest or something like that.
That's brilliant.
It was a lot of fun. X-Play, which was video game reviews and comedy. Attack of the Show, which was about tech news and video game news and using that kind of to springboard off into silliness. And I'm sad that it's going to be gone. When I saw that only 1,000 people, it was only playing to 1,000 people during prime time, it's like, oh, wow, I am pretty rare. Alan Moore gave another interview where they asked him about the adaptations of his work and superhero stuff, and he reiterated yet again, I don't watch any of the adaptations of my work because I'm really mad that they're doing it. I did not okay them to do that, but because of the way contracts are set up, I can't stop them, and I don't like superheroes. I never did like superheroes. I liked Superman back when it was fun. Miracle Man is kind of my last word on superheroes, and I don't want to work in comics ever again. And everybody, of course, lost their minds because every time Alan Moore is interviewed, he gives the same answer. And everybody, how dare he? He made so much money off comics. Yeah, but he got screwed over and 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 over again. His deal with Marvel. Hey, in the UK, contracts are different. Anything that the contracts in the UK were set up so if you created it, you co-owned it, et cetera, and Marvel, after he did his Captain Britain run, Marvel said, no, you don't own it. No, we don't work that way. Or over at DC, where he worked at stuff from DC. He played nice with everybody. They gave him this contract for Watchmen that they said was the most creator-friendly contract ever, except there was a clause in it that as long as Watchmen stays in print, DC gets to own it. Well, then, and when he signed it, there were no trade paperbacks. Watchmen and Dark Knight created that market, which was basically their way of saying, yeah, you're never getting it back. Same with V for Vendetta. It's like, okay, you guys are going to print this and then I get it back. Nope. Then he signs up with Image. He does 1963, and the creators screw him over on that. And I don't have all of the details, but everybody involved in that is angry. Don Simpson, Rick Veitch, everybody. So then he creates the America's Best Comics for Wildstorm. What happens? Jim Lee sells Wildstorm to DC. So he has to work with DC again. He's almost 70. He's angry about how he got screwed over. Yes, he has money, but imagine how much more money he'd have if, okay, Watchmen is done. We printed a book of it. It's gone out of print. It's yours. Then he could do his Minutemen story and the other stories he wanted to do, but he couldn't because it's not his anymore. V for Vendetta, he owned it. He gave it to DC to print, and now they own it. So on and so on and so on and so on. Can we please quit freaking out every time Alan Moore gives an interview and says the same thing he's been saying for 20 years? And then the last thing I am freaking out about, there is a dealer, guy who owned early comic shops in the early 70s, got a job at Diamond, has retired, and is now writing his memoirs. And his memoirs that he's putting up on Facebook seem to be a bit bogus. He can't back up certain things he has said, including one thing that before I knew that he was somebody who Pinocchio would look at and go, I want to be like that so that my nose goes to the moon. So remember when I said that, oh, there's some scuttlebutt that the company that bought Marvel in '68 was connected to the CIA? The guy has not given me any backup for that. In the year since he said it, there's nothing online anywhere. Well, recently he put up a story that he bought a whole bunch of original Kirby, Ditko, and Neil Adams art from Roy Thomas at the Roy Thomas, Marv Wolfman, and Len Wein in a hotel room at the St. Louis Science Fiction Con in 1969. Hinting that, if these guys had it, that was before artists were given their art back. So if they're selling big old stacks of original art, they might have stolen it. Roy Thomas found out about this, and his agent put up a very long rebuttal to this, basically saying, not only was I not at that convention, I've never sold original art. The original art that I got when I was a writer at Marvel, I either gave back to the artist or I still have. I've never sold any of the original art that I have. Len Wein has passed away, so he can't defend himself. I imagine Marv Wolfman will be doing pretty much the same thing, because for a lot of years there was that Len Wein and Marv Wolfman stole art from Marvel and DC when they worked there, and both of them have denied it over and over and over again. They have said that there were times they were told to cut up art and throw it away, and instead they would not cut it up and take it home so that it wouldn't be destroyed, which is far different from they stole the art. But the fact that Roy Thomas has to deal with this, Roy's in his 80s. Roy is a hero. He was one of the first fans to get into comics. He did tons of stuff to raise rates for people in the 70s. He actually left his position as editor-in-chief of Marvel when he found out that Stan Lee and Carmine Infantino were working together to make sure that they were basically doing price fixing. It's, this artist wants to come over to DC because he thinks he's going to get a higher page rate. We're paying him this much. So Carmine would go, okay, I'm going to offer him the same rate that you're getting if this artist who wants to go from DC to Marvel we're paying him this much. Could you offer him the same? Basically, it was collusion. And Roy Thomas said, I won't be any part of it. That is why he stepped down as editor-in-chief. The guy has morals. That's all I'm going to say about it. Joe, what are you geeking on?
Let's see. Let's go first off. I told you guys I'm eBaying again, so things are selling, which is kind of cool because that kind of would give me the idea whether I was going to keep doing this or not. And of course, the window I wanted just closed, so let me reopen it. Again, I don't have a store because I don't think I have enough on the eBays yet to make it worthwhile. But I'm putting up stuff. I'm putting it up. A lot of things I've been putting up have been things that have not been on my eBay store before. All right, here we go. But here's a couple of things that have already gone. I had an Astonishing X-Men number 25, which had a DF Alex Ross sketch variant cover. I've lowered the price on the high-end variants I've gotten from Dynamic Forces and sold a Shadow Green Hornet Dark Knights number 2. Again, Alex Ross variant. High-end means they probably did, I think in this case, they only did 25 of them. And usually they retail about $100 or more. I sold this one for 40. And that was because he asked me nicely. So if you ask nicely, I will do that for you. Let's see, when was the last time we talked?
Last week.
All right. Well, the last thing I sold, and I don't think I talked about this. I did talk about it. I had the Marvel Assistant sized super or spectacular. It was a 2-issue series that came out in 2009, mostly notable because it's the first appearance of Galacta, the daughter of Galactus, done by Adam Warren, and people went bug nuts. That's the issue that is hard to find. So you'll find one all over the place, but to get that number 2, mine were in fine shape, so I sold them for a little under $40. And again, if you get online and you see something you want, you know what to do as long-term listeners. Just send me a note and say, hey, I done listened to the podcast. You owe me. You got some nerve. But I'll probably give you a deal on it because a lot of the stuff I'm putting up, I'm just putting up because I'm trying to get rid of it. My plans are to mostly, when I reach the magic number 250, because you're allowed 250 free listings a month, I will probably reopen just a base store and then work my way up to a bigger store. So again, I'm just trying to rebuild. It's kind of nice because I was a little worried when I first got this going that eBay would kind of lower me and screw me in the listings. But now that I'm back, come get some. I'm coming to get some. I've been buying stuff off the eBays. I picked up an X-Men movie prequel with Hugh Jackman photo cover on it. We've talked about this weird book in the past. The reason I mention is because apparently Twin Cities Geek was going to have a signing with Hugh Jackman. They've done this in the past with other celebrities, and what they do is you send it in, and then they have a little sticker that they put on the item that says, yes, this is an actual autograph. And people are like, well, I don't want it on it. Well, we put it right on the cover. So I figured I'd get myself a photo cover Hugh Jackman. No idea if I'm going to do it for 2 reasons. First of all, I don't know how much it's going to cost. It ain't going to be cheap. There's people like, I'm still paying off the last 2 and you're doing another one. The other thing is I saw this listing. I haven't seen anything since. And of course, the way Facebook works is they're so inaccurate. It could be already, the deadline passed 2 days ago. And 2 days from now, I'll get, have you sent in your things to be signed? So a little worried about that. I did pick up a Logan's Run brooch, little tiny 1-inch pinback type thing that has that, if you remember the opening thing where in the lobby going to Carousel, where the hand is turning, I picked out the one that has a little red thing on it. So that's going to go on my hat next time I go out conning. So I'm always looking to buy. Case in point, I did do a little geeking today. And I went out. First off, I went to three stores. I went to Half Price Books, I went to the Source, and then I stopped by the college. At the college, I was able to fill in some holes from my Supergirl Peter David run, because apparently after about issue 50, I kind of didn't really buy it, and until he did that phenomenal run from 75 to the end, where he did bring back the original Supergirl. It's a wonderful story. Look it up. But I love Peter David's stuff. I just don't know why I brain farted on this one. Most of the time as I go through shops, I'm looking for either one-shots or a series. Like I found Legend of Mother Sarah, which is a Dark Horse, came out around starting about 1995, a couple miniseries. It's about a post-apocalyptic Earth where the elite members of society live in off-world colonies because of Earth's conditions. Oceans are now deserts and civilizations been reduced to rubble. It's manga. Gotta get the term right. And Kashiro Otomo and Nakumi Nagaseyu, I think. I've got all 7 issues of The City of Children, and that's kind of what I was looking for. If I could find the run and it was cheap, it'd be some fun reading. I found the Marvel Comics run of Prince Valiant, and I have no idea who did it or done it, but all 4 issues are there. And then I also picked up from Eclipse Comics something called Black Magic, and this is, I can't help me with the pronunciation if I do it wrong. Masasun Shiro's seminal first work, and this was way back 1990. I've never read it. That's kind of the key with me as I'm going through crap. If I see something I've never read and you got all the issues there, I will pick it up unless it's really cheap, like 50-cent cheap, and then I can go find the other ones, which is why I found myself picking up a miniseries I missed or passed on called The Crime Syndicate, which came out, I don't know. It's in the new continuity. So a couple one-shots, the Chaos Holiday Special, Generation X Gen 13, Knights of the Dinner Table, Bundle of Trouble, Volume 1 and 2, which reprints the early issues, which I have, but as they're expensive, I would rather just read them that way. I picked up a Loot Crate, Brave and Bold number 28. Corey, tell them what issue number 28 of Brave and Bold had.
That is the first appearance of the Justice League.
Yes. And I figured for $3, why not? It's not expensive. You could probably find it on the eBays. I did get box day today. And excuse me while I turn around. A couple things I'm excited about. Oh, where did my box day go? I did get Yours Cruelly, Elvira, the memoirs of the Mistress of the Dark from Cassandra Peterson. I got my Archie Encyclopedia, which I can't wait to crank that open. And then from New York's best-selling author, Grant Morrison, Luda.
I read that book.
I haven't. Yeah, I'm excited to read this. I'm not going to be reading this as well as much of my box day because I am still plowing through the New Mutants. And there was a couple things. I'm into the New Mutants Omnibus number 2. I don't know if there is a number 3 yet. So I think 3 will take us back what we talked about last week, where it gets into Rob Liefeld and Fabian Isaiah create what becomes X-Force. But I did want to mention, we had talked about where the New Mutants were during the Civil War. And as I reread it, I found out what happened is apparently Doug Ramsey, he wasn't revealed he was a mutant yet, although they knew he was a mutant, but he was being headhunted by Emma Frost at the Hellfire Academy, or the Massachusetts, whatever they called it. So Kitty Pryde went with him to see if it was legit, and they thought it was okay because they thought Emma Frost was in a coma. She wasn't. However, when Kitty yelled for help, was the same time the X-Men were drawn to the building in Central Park and were teleported to the first Secret Wars. And Aliana, before she became the full-on magic, was looking for Katie in her astral form and discovered her being tortured by the White Queen, and off the New Mutants went to rescue her, which is why they weren't in the first Secret Wars. It also explained why Professor X was keep getting knocked out and down, because he was getting random waves by the Beyonder because he was scanning the universe. A couple of things that were kind of interesting as I went through it. And what I do is I take pictures of this and I keep sending it to Corey, but it came across a picture where it was Bill Sienkiewicz's first issue, Daniel Moonstar's last stand. Let's see. There was a really chilling panel where Rachel, who just, it was weird as if, when I was reading New Mutants, a lot of it, I think, assumed that you were also reading X-Men, because there were only 2 books, because they were kind of referring to things like all of a sudden Rachel shows up, she knocks on the door, runs away, and we don't see her again. So she shows up as a, accepted member of the New Mutant, or just hanging with the New Mutants. There was a lot of crossover, a lot of things happen in one book, happen in another. The aforementioned who won the mystery sock contest from Mystery Month. One of my favorite panels where Warlock comes in to save the day as he swoops in as the Starship Enterprise, from which, if you recall, at the time Marvel was doing a Star Trek comic, which is probably why they got around to doing that. Other things like when they were all hanging out in Asgard and Warlock would appear as Hagrid the Horrible, and they're like, Warlock, this is not a great disguise. Anyways, back to Rachel. She kind of mind slips and has a vision. She's still hunting mutants in New York where the World Trade Center was destroyed and smoldering. This was 1985 when this came out. Mr. Claremont, are you showing some premonition, much like The Simpsons were? I'm going to have to reread some of his stuff a little closer. But I am enjoying the New Mutants. I don't know if Omnibus 3's been solicited, but I sure hope I'd be buying it when it comes out. And, of course, I've got to find X-Men number 4, because that continues. I think that's side by side. A lot of the issues that were going on, Inferno, things like that, weren't part of the New Mutants crossover, but they affected it, especially when the New Mutants set up Triage after Inferno. So again, it helps that this was kind of my golden age, so I knew what was going on. But if you're just reading this and you weren't reading both, you'd be kind of confused. I did spend the weekend alone, which was odd because I'm not usually alone, but both the girls and my wife, I should say Holly and my wife, went out to go visit the eldest daughter out in Reno for a while. So I didn't really do much because I was just basically home, work home, work home, work home. So, and believe me, if I had the work time, I would probably have blown it off and just gone geeking. Showed up on Corey's doorstep. Come on, let's go. I know you got dirty laundry to do, but forget about it. Heard about a new comic book store. I haven't been to it because it's down in Marion, Iowa. Swamp Fox Bookstore, 809 6th Avenue, number 3 and 4 in Marion, Ohio. SwampFoxBookstore.com. Dangerous Dan Moore's wife, brain fart. Why can't I think of her name?
Julie.
Thank you, man. Sorry, Julie. I mean, I have your lovely vision in my head, but she met the owner of this and said, hey, I just met this new owner. And I was like, oh, send me a link to her store because I love bookstores. So I'm going to check this one out. Comic store owner and a gentleman we've talked about in the past a lot, Brian Hibbs, is doing a Comic Experience Graphic Novel of the Month Club. Hey, you, have you heard of Graphic Novel Club? It's brought to you by Comics Experience. Cultivate brand new graphic novels from your favorite creators and upcoming superstars, shipped directly to you from their store, plus access to exclusive merchandise and interviews, such as signed book plates, things like that. There's also a kids club too, brand new graphic novel every month, live stream creative interviews, cool swag for only $25 a month. To learn more, go to graphicnovelclub.com/start, or go check out Brian Hibbs' Facebook page, or I'm sure if you checked out Comic Experience website page, you'll see a scan coupon to join. Check it out. It looks like it'd be kind of fun. I mean, compared to what we tell you to buy after every preview episode, you certainly can't go wrong. So who knows? Maybe Brian will hear it, and I don't know. Give us a call, Brian. We'd love to talk about this. It sounds like it's kind of an interesting idea. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's pretty much it for me. Corey, what you geeking on? What's got you excited today?
Joe, I don't know if you watch the current Simpsons or not.
I hear about it. They must be doing Treehouse of Horror soon because I'm playing it on my tapped out game.
They're doing 2 Treehouse of Horror episodes. They're doing a version of it with Krusty as it, as Pennywise the Clown, and then the regular Treehouse of Horror. But a couple of weeks ago, they did an episode called Lisa the Boy Scout.
Ooh.
And it was set up that Lisa wanted to join the Boy Scouts, but then it is interrupted because 2 hackers have hacked their way into the hard drives at Disney to release footage from episodes that did not get completed that would ruin the Simpsons franchise. It was basically a clip show of clips we've never seen, tons of meta humor. It was the funniest thing the Simpsons have done in years.
To Disney Plus.
Go out of your way to watch it. It is amazingly funny. I have also been on a Legion of Superheroes kick because once again, they're talking about bringing the Legion of Superheroes back, and they haven't really been able to do a good Legion of Superheroes story for 20 years.
Yeah. 5 years later.
Which is a damn shame because the Legion of Superheroes was my accidental gateway to the DC universe. And at one point, they were DC's biggest comic. But because of reboots and changes and all this other stuff, now the Legion, every time they try to redo it, it just doesn't work because a lot of fans, with the Legion, there are so many characters and so much lore that you kind of have to be in it. And when it's canceled and doesn't come back for years, a lot of those fans have moved on. Creators want to change things because it didn't sell well last time, so we have to figure out what to do. I think they've killed the Legion of Superheroes. So I went back and I started reading kind of the last great run, which started with Legion Lost, which was a 12-issue miniseries about 6 members of the Legion of Superheroes get shoved through this rift in space and end up millions and millions of light years away from the galaxy they know, and they're trying to get back. It's written by Dan Abnett and his partner at the time, Lanning, who, after their run on Legion, went over to Marvel and did a little something called Annihilation.
Nevertheless.
And the Guardians of the Galaxy, etc., etc. But I really, really liked the Legion Lost. And I was amazed at the artist because I'd forgotten who drew it. Olivier Coipel. This was his first major series before he became a superstar artist. And his style on it is very different. He's a French artist, and this was kind of his first work in US comics, and he was still using that very European style. So the stuff looks incredibly different from any other comic from that time period. And I had forgotten how cool that story was. It's been long enough, 22 years, since I read it. So while I remembered the big overall stuff, there were a lot of individual story beats that I'd forgotten. And it was, oh, that's cool. Oh, I forgot about that. It was then followed by a 6-issue miniseries that showed what was going on with the Legion of Superheroes that were in the regular, who hadn't been shunted millions and millions of light years away, and how the Legion of Superheroes broke up. So, where was Mon-El? Where was, Lightning Lass? Where were these characters? What did they do? How did things change? And now I'm going to start reading the Legion series that Abnett and Lanning did. I think it lasted around 3 years, so around 30 to 40 issues. Then after that, they kept hitting the reset button, which killed the series. But boy, I really, as I'm reading it, it's like, oh, I miss the Legion of Superheroes. I think that they got done dirty after Crisis on Infinite Earths because they started saying, okay, they weren't inspired by Superboy anymore, so all of your continuity having to do with Superboy, you got to fix it, rather than just saying, okay, things changed, just don't refer to it anymore. No, 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 you need to do big cosmic stories to fix everything. That just made it more and more confusing as time went on. And then the last thing I'm geeking on, Joe actually hinted at it a little earlier. Baby Metal has been on hiatus for about a year. They have a new album coming out, I think February or March. But the way they are going to be doing it is they are going to release a song a month until the album comes out. The first new song came out today. The song was partially written by the lead singer, Sue Metal, who, if you know how Baby Metal was created, they were basically kind of put together as, well, Joe, what is the name of that Korean boy band?
Oh, the ones that are just being told, sorry, you must be and serve your military requirement.
Yeah.
I can't think of the name.
Neither can I because they're not in my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
But this was kind of the same thing. In Japan, they have kids who go to these schools to train them to be singers, dancers, models, actors, etc., etc. Baby Metal was kind of put together by that. And normally those bands last about 2 or 3 years, but Baby Metal just exploded. And the lead singer, Sue Metal, she wasn't chosen. It's not like in America where, okay, I'm going to put a band together. I need to learn how to play instruments. Now I'm going to play in coffee houses and maybe I'll get noticed and get gigs in better and better places till I get a record deal. Nope. They were, all right, here you go. Here's your act. We're going to put you on tour. She wasn't chosen because she was a great songwriter, a great guitarist, or anything. She had a great voice and a good look. Well, now she's starting to write the songs as well. So the new song is out. I really enjoy it. And I'm 58 years old. I can't tell you the last time I was excited for a new album coming out. But they have done such a good job of hyping this and getting us ready that it's, oh man, I can't wait for this album to come out. And it's a lot like when Marvel and DC start hyping their crossover events, or they start hyping a big movie or a new TV series. It's been a while since I've been excited about an album. So it's like, cool, I miss this. I miss hearing that a band I like has got an album coming out in 3 months, and maybe we'll get a video a month ahead of time. And oh, they're starting to announce their tour and everything. So I'm not going to say it's nostalgic, but it's more, hey, I miss this feeling. I miss getting excited about music. Believe it or not, kids, you've listened to us blather on about TV and funny books and bad TV shows and weird TV shows and us owning a network for an hour and a half.
Hooray for you. Hooray for us.
And as we say every week, the comic we like the least, we still like better than the comic that you like the most. Joe?
What do you call a nun who walks in her sleep? A Roman Catholic. Okay, I'll take your grunts on that one. In the meantime, hit my music.